Hi, my name is Mike Ferguson from Intelligent Business Strategies. I want to talk to you about my new class on centralized data governance of a distributed data landscape. I think in the last 10 years, we've seen a dramatic change in the need for data governance, but to be able to handle a much more complex data estate than we probably originally had some years ago. In the past, most of the systems we've had have been centralized within the data center on premises. Today, we have data being stored at the edge. We have data in different kinds of data store in multiple clouds, and we also have data on premises on multiple kinds of data stores. So effectively, our data that we're trying to govern is spread out across many different kinds of data store in multiple different locations, many of which are no longer just inside the enterprise. They're out there on public clouds or software as a service applications, or indeed at the edge as well. So when you look at the challenge of data governance, it's far more complicated than it ever used to be. And it's not just about data quality anymore. It's about data sharing, it's about data privacy, it's about data security, it's about data retention, it's about data quality, of course, master data management, all of those things all rolled into a much bigger, more challenging data governance program. And this class is exactly how you go about setting one of these things up and implementing data governance across a complex distributed data landscape like the one I've just described. So we get into a lot of things in this class. It's pretty intensive 2 days, really going into all the different aspects of data governance. So for example, we talk about, what is data governance and why do you need it? Again, I'll look at the challenges involved and what it now means that we have to implement governance across such a more complicated distributed data landscape. I want to look at, well, what are the requirements around that? What do you have to think about? What exactly, do we need to think about content as well as data here? So it's not just data sitting in databases in columns and rows. We could be dealing with documents with sensitive data in email, for example, email attachments. We could deal with the documents in various kinds of document stores. We could deal with semi-structured data like JSON sitting in NoSQL databases. We have applications with their underlying data stores, whether they are relational SQL-based databases or whether they are NoSQL databases. There are Hadoop systems, data lakes, all of this data out there, very, very complicated to try and get it under control and govern it. But yet the legislation is increasing. It's not just GDPR anymore. If you are a global business, you may have to deal with legislation in other regions of the world or other countries of the world outside of the European Union. So we may have to deal with multiple different kinds of legislation. So I want to know, what are the requirements here? What do we need to do in the way of setting policies, not just for data quality, but also access security and privacy and retention and loss prevention and sharing and use or maintenance of data? And what are the key technologies that we need? Things like data catalogs, trainable classifiers, data fabric, thinking about dynamic data masking, about data loss prevention software, and master data management. How does that fit into all of this whole more complicated governance challenge? So I want to then look at the importance of key things like business glossaries and data catalogs. And how do you understand the data in your landscape using data catalogs to automatically discover that? But to go further than just discovering it, we need to be able to classify it in order to know how to govern it, label the data to know how to govern it, so that we can automatically identify sensitive types of data, which vary in different parts of the world, in different countries, even within the European Union. I want to look at, how do you go about classifying content and knowing how to govern it? And how does that stretch beyond just structured data in databases and go all the way out to content, to email, documents, all of that? How do we bring it all under the one data governance umbrella and govern data security in a distributed landscape? How do we handle that? How do we handle governing data privacy across all of these different data stores? And what about governing retention? You know, there are certain local legislations that you may have to keep data for a certain amount of time within particular countries. There could be regional legislation. All of that could vary depending upon where the data originated. I want to look at not just retention, I want to look at data sharing. Increasingly now, sharing data within the enterprise and across borders, either within your organization or across companies in different parts of the world, and how do we govern all of that? And of course, how do you govern data quality as well to make sure that the data that we're using is of high quality and you can have confidence in using it? And how we can stretch that out into master data management, which of course is a very key type of data within organizations. There's a lot to discuss here within this 2-day class. And also, how do you sort of transition yourself from, let's say, a data governance program that's just been focused on data quality to this much broader data governance challenge of handling data across multiple different kinds of data store, both structured, semi-structured, and unstructured, including content stores as well, and bring it all under one umbrella and manage it easily from a common central place and enforce policies across a distributed landscape. So please join me if you can. It's a pretty challenging 2 days, but I hope when you come out of it, you'll have a much more greater understanding of what's needed and how to go about tackling this particularly complex challenge. Okay, thanks a lot.